Things are gonna get crazy!
Most everyone's mad here.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another non-live episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. Yes, this time around, once again, I will not be doing this live on Twitch, and as you could tell, if you are watching this, you will see that the chat wall over here is pretty much empty. Now, I know at first some of you might be a little bit worried, and if the reasons why I wasn't doing this live could be probably the same reasons as last time, but don't worry folks, no, that is not the case. I didn't go back to the ER. In fact, I have actually very much improved in terms of my health. And the reason why I wasn't there on Saturday to do a live episode was actually because I was away. I was actually on a little mini vacation with my friends down at a cottage, and we had a lot of fun. And for me, I did consider that to be a mini vacation, just to pretty much get away from like the woes and like the stress and all that kind of stuff. Considering that so far this month for me has been practically insane so far, not just with the workload that I had. You know, I always work hard on my videos every day, every week and all that stuff, but also the madness that I went through with my throat infection, where it has gotten so bad to the point that I had to be sent to the ER. But don't worry, all that has passed, and so far I feel so much better. I feel so much more energized, and so far I could not just skip this week because there had been so much news that had been going on, so much animation news even, that I just can't ignore it. I need to go and discuss these things because a lot of them are actually very big, and there's a lot of things that we all need to discuss. I know that I don't have my chat wall, but I know that these are things that you guys want to hear me talk about, and that these are things that you guys might want to have your own inputs as well. These are things, these are news that you gotta hear. So that's why I still have to do this major episode. So, with all that said, and by the way, funny enough, since last time I actually did a non-live episode, a lot of people have mentioned that apparently this is going back to the old format of my podcast, or how things were with the old podcast before AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. I never really thought of that, honestly. I guess I kind of suppressed my memories from those days, but hey, you know what? Like, as long as this episode is still good, it's still entertaining, it's still informative, that's the most important part. So with all that said, now that I got all that out of the way, it is now time that we go and get things started. And with the first story that I have here, might as well go and start off with something a little bit light. Let's start with a little bit of something short per se. And what I got here is actually going to be the comeback of shorts that we haven't had in a while. But now it seems like we are getting a comeback, and in a little bit of a new format, or at least in where we would go and consume them. And what I'm going to be talking about, of course, is going to be regarding the Mickey Mouse cartoons. Yes, they are going to be coming back, but not like usual. Instead, now, we are going to be getting new Mickey Mouse cartoons exclusively on Disney Plus, where they're going to have a brand new home in the form of a series called The Wonderful World of Mickey Mouse. Now, I know it seems like, okay, this is going to be a brand new show in the same style of how things were before, but not necessarily. Like I said, like, the cartoons are going to be coming back, and it's going to be the same thing as we would get with the past Mickey Mouse shorts, but it's just that now they're going to be on Disney Plus instead of Disney Channel. But they are promising, though, that we are still getting the same great things that we have been getting in the past. Just to go and read you here a little bit from my source on D23, it states here, The new Disney Plus original series will feature Mickey and his best pals, Minnie, Donald, Daisy, Goofy, and Pluto, as they embark on their greatest adventures yet in a wild and zany world where the magic of Disney makes the impossible possible. Fans are in store for a mousterful, that really is kind of a stretch there, a combination of laugh-out-loud comedy, modern setting, timeless stories, new music, and the unmistakable art style of the Mickey Mouse shorts, which puts a contemporary twist of on a classic look that harkens back to Mickey's 1928 beginnings. And don't worry, folks, when it comes to the people who are actually working on the shorts, it's still going to be the same crew that they got back at Disney Television Animation, and also the same leaders and the same big names that are attached as well. Most namingly, you got Paul Ruddish, the man who is credited to be responsible for Mickey Mouse's new look. He's still going to be on board as an executive producer and a supervising director, as well as Christopher Willis, the man who has done the music for these Mickey Mouse shorts. He will still be attached to this, doing music as well. Now, with all that said, some of you might be wondering, when are these cartoons going to be coming out on Disney Plus? Well, I mean, considering that we are talking about Mickey Mouse here, there is no better time for him to go and appear with something new than on his birthday. Yes, it's going to be on November 18th to be exact, where there's going to be 2 new shorts from the wonderful world of Mickey Mouse. And then following afterwards, every Friday, starting on November 27th, that's when they're going to go and release a new cartoon. Every Friday, one after another, until they reach 10 cartoons in total. And then after that, fans will have to go and wait until in the summer of 2021, where there are going to be 10 more new cartoons that will be coming up. So already they got several cartoons that are going to be in the works for the wonderful world of Mickey Mouse. And this has certainly answered a major question for people, where they are asking whatever happened to these Mickey Mouse cartoons, because it has honestly been a while since they actually made anything, or that we ever had any of these new Mickey Mouse cartoons. Because as I am recording this, it is true that it has been over a year since we have seen any new content from these Mickey Mouse cartoons. I have heard a lot of people state that, or a lot of people spread rumors about the possibility as to why there has been such a long delay. Some people have stated that a big role is mainly due to the passing of Russi Taylor last year, the voice of Minnie Mouse. And I mean, I wouldn't say that they're wrong. I'm sure that played a key factor, especially when they had to go and look for a new Minnie, but I don't think that might be the biggest reason. I'm sure there might have been like several factors as to why there would be such a big wait. And like, considering that there have been like 5 seasons of like these cartoons, I'm sure this wouldn't be the first time either that fans would have to wait for a while until there would be this new batch. So I'm not necessarily all that worried about the wait, but I am surprised though about the new format that they are going to try to do by releasing it on Disney Plus. And I'm not too worried about the whole situation with what's going on with Minnie, because I forgot the person's name who is the new voice of Minnie. If you are watching this on YouTube, then feel free to comment who the individual is. But so far, to be honest, all I've heard is just great and positive things about her. Like, not only is she a great Minnie, but apparently it's the kind of scenario where she's kind of like been destined to play Minnie Mouse in a way after Russi Taylor. So so far that is kind of a positive sign that we could be seeing some great new things related to Minnie and her new voice actress. So there is that. But one thing I will say, and I'm speaking on this personally on my end, what I find to be very exciting is the fact that this is actually going to be coming out on Disney Plus instead of Disney Channel. Now, it might sound a little bit weird, but for me, the reason why I'm a little bit more excited on that is actually mainly because I feel like now there's going to be a lot more accessibility for people around the world to actually go and check out these new Mickey Mouse cartoons. Now, I know some people could say that, there have always been ways that you can go and easily check them out, whether it be on YouTube or nowadays, all the cartoons are on Disney+. But I'm speaking by personal experience where before, or even before Disney+, it really wasn't easy to go and try to find the new episodes of the Mickey Mouse cartoons, especially if you're not from America. Because I could imagine, like, if you're in the States, then it wouldn't necessarily be too difficult to either catch it on the Disney Channel on television, or you could just go and check it out on YouTube. Because I know on YouTube, they would periodically go and upload the cartoons onto their channel and stuff like that. After that, they would air on television. But in my case, I wasn't able to go and actually access them because for some reason, or at least when I would try to go and find the new cartoons, they would always go and region lock it. At least the videos that I could try to find on YouTube, they would go and make it only US only. And as a Canadian, it's often very discouraging to find clips that they would just put it US only. And I mean, it isn't just Disney that would go and do it. There are plenty of other American TV channels that would do the same thing as well. Like, it often sucks, like, especially like when I would have my friends that would talk about like the latest funny thing that would happen on Saturday Night Live, and they would try to show me a clip of what they would talk about. And yet, like, when I click on it, it's like, okay, well, that's pointless because they only made it US only. I'm not allowed to go and check it out because I'm Canadian. And that's the thing. That's kind of the big reason why I'm not as necessarily caught up to all the Mickey Mouse cartoons as much as before, mainly because of those past experiences. I wasn't able to go and like check out as much as I would want because they always go and region lock it. I mean, debatably today, nowadays, like I don't necessarily have that problem anymore, mainly because I got Disney Plus and Disney did upload all the cartoons onto Disney Plus. But in the past, it was a little bit difficult to try to access them, and it did discourage me from pursuing to check out any more of those Mickey Mouse cartoons. Even though, like, some of them that I did go see, there are some that, like, when they're good, they're freaking fantastic. There might be some that are not as great, and they could be a little bit too off the wall, too insane sometimes, but it definitely is a show that, like, when they got good episodes, they are great episodes. So from there, that's one thing I am excited about because, like, at least now, at this point, with the wonderful world of Mickey Mouse, I can be on the loop as much as the Americans or anyone else around the world, and I can actually go and check out the new episodes when they actually do come out. So that's one thing I actually am personally excited to go and see with these new cartoons. So now, like, even I could be on the loop with all the Paul Reddish Mickey Mouse cartoons, as many people would go and call them. Like I said before, that's the one way many fans would go and distinct these new Mickey Mouse cartoons, is often they would go and credit Paul Reddish, mainly because it is mainly his style that he incorporated with the Mickey Mouse characters, and not just his style of animation, but also a bit of his style of comedy, bringing Mickey Mouse to contemporary animation to make it more comedy oriented. Or funny enough, I remember in the past, one way that I would often describe these new Mickey Mouse cartoons is that, like, it's Mickey and the gang trying a little bit to have more Looney Tunes style humor onto their cartoons. Like, I think that would be the best way to describe that in a way, because it can be a bit off the wall, can be self-referential, can be fourth wall breaking in a sense. So, like, you know, it's like Mickey Mouse and the gang is now fully aware that they are Disney branded cartoons, and they would just go and have fun with it. So overall for me, I'm personally excited to go and check out these new cartoons, you know, like, I'm excited also for me to be involved, you know, to like join in the fun as when these cartoons would be like fresh out of the oven in a way, like when they would be just released on Disney Plus. Plus. So that's also another thing that I am excited for all this. So if you guys are curious as to when these new cartoons are going to be coming out, like I said before, the first batch is going to be coming out on November 18th, and then it will be coming out every Friday afterwards, and then you'll have more in the summer. So yeah, I'm excited to go and check out what Disney has in store with the crazy side of Mickey Mouse. All right, now, with Mickey done, it is now time we're going to jump onto the next story, and I will be discussing about a live-action remake. Yes, taking a good old animated property and turn it into a live-action flick. And I know a lot of people are not necessarily fond of them, especially the ones coming from Disney. But I'm just going to say this right now. The thing is with these Disney live-action remakes, as much as there are so many of them, and that there is so much of a backlash against them, I'm just going to say this right now. Let's be honest, to Disney's credit, they could have been much worse. At least they're not live-action remakes to Japanese animated products, like Your Name. Yes, apparently this week, it has been revealed that Isaac Chung has been hired by Paramount in order to go to not only direct, but to completely rewrite the live-action remake of the 2016 or I think it's either 2016 or 2017 movie, Your Name. And it's not just going to be coming from Paramount, but also apparently this is going to be a movie from Bad Robot and also Toho, which Toho is the Japanese company that distributed the original Your Name. Speaking of which, speaking of the people that are involved in there, or the companies, considering that Bad Robot is involved, yes, that also means J.J. Abrams is going to be attached to the project, where he's going to be a producer, along with the producer of the animated Your Name, Genki Kawamura, will also be attached to it. Now, when it comes to the script, by the way, considering that Chung is going to be doing a new version of the script, it is stated here on Deadline that apparently Chung will work off the draft by Emily V. Gordon. The script was originally written by Arrival screenwriter Eric Heiserer. So apparently they've already gotten a script before, but now they want to have a bit of a new take. And if you are curious as to what this new version is going to be about, so far, what I've gathered, or at least how they described it in this Deadline article, so far a lot of them still sound a bit of the same. It has stated here, in this reimagined version, two teenagers discover they are magically and intermittently swapping bodies. Okay, so kind of the same thing as what we've already gotten in the animated Your Name. When a disaster threatens to upend their lives, they must journey to meet and save their worlds. So probably the whole discussion with the meteor and stuff like that. So that seems to be the big thing that is going on, is that apparently they got a new writer and director to be attached to Your Name. Oh, and by the way, I'm sure a lot of you people are probably curious as to wonder who Isaac Chung is. Well, before starting this podcast, I did do a little bit of a research onto figuring out who this individual is, and from what I have discovered, it seems that Isaac Chung so far is more of an indie filmmaker, more the kind of person that would appear a lot more at film festivals, more so than on big mainstream movies. Like, his films would occasionally appear in stuff like the Cannes Film Festival, the Berlin Film Festival, the Toronto Film Festival. What else? I think like he got his movies in Sundance as well, and all that kind of stuff. He's more like an indie filmmaker that would go and make some small movies that would jump from festival to festival and would go and get some praise from there. In fact, actually, there is a little bit of there's a little bit of a description here about Chung from Deadline, as it says. As for its new director, Chung is the son of Korean immigrants who grew up in a small farm in rural Arkansas and then attended Yale University before abandoning plans for medical school to earn his MFA. His debut film, Muyurangabo, premiered at Cannes to great acclaim. Chung's latest film, Mirani with Plan B and A24, won the Grand Jury and Audience Awards at Sundance 2020. So, at the very least, like, even though he is a small indie filmmaker, he is still, like, a highly praised one. Like, this is a rising filmmaker. Someone, who is so far making some very impressive movies and is just a few steps away from actually getting into, like, the big leagues to actually go and make movies for the major studios. And finally, it looks like he's finally gonna go and get his chance by working on Your Name. Now, if I may go and put a little bit of my piece on Your Name, one thing I will admit is that it is a very good movie and a surprisingly very clever movie, because at first it would seem like it's like this kind of weird Freaky Friday anime kind of thing where like you got two random teenagers swapping bodies and somehow there's gonna be this romance that's gonna happen eventually. But there are some clever aspects to the concepts that they have created. Now, granted, I will say that often when it comes to the romance aspect, it is probably one of the weakest things about the movie, because often it can get a little too corny at times and it could take itself a little bit too seriously during moments when it's a little bit more stupid than anything. But I will say, it is still a very well-made film, a beautiful looking animated feature at that. But still, like, it is very good. But one thing that I will admit, though, and this could end up being a little bit controversial for me to say, is that, personally, I do feel like Your Name is a little bit overrated. I mean, as I said before, it is very good, but honestly, the kind of attention that it got, even to the point I believe it did surpass Spirited Away in becoming the highest grossing Japanese anime film of all time, honestly, I don't think it really did deserve that kind of award. I think it's a little bit too hyped up. And honestly, like, with all the craze and the fact that, like, it became such a huge phenomenon, I don't think it really deserved that kind of attention. I don't think it deserved that much attention, especially when there are plenty of other anime, Japanese animated features that did far better than this and deserve way more attention. Like, I've seen plenty of features, like, honestly, movies like Your Name, for example, like, I don't understand how that one didn't become a massive phenomenon. Like, not to say that Your Name didn't become popular, but I don't understand how that one didn't be, like, it's such a beautifully crafted film, yet it didn't reach the monumental status as Your Name did. Like, I would even debate and go and say that Your Name was possibly the biggest anime, like, probably the biggest and most popular anime of the 2010 decade. But personally, in my opinion, I don't think it really deserved that much attention. It is a good film, but I wouldn't say is that great to gather that much acclaim and that much attention. In fact, I would even say the movie that these filmmakers have done afterwards, Weathering With You, I thought it was much better. Honestly, like, I remember seeing that on the big screen. It was one of the last movies that I saw before the pandemic occurred, and it was just a fantastic feature from beginning to end. I prefer that one than Your Name, honestly. But then again, that's just me with, of course, my controversial opinions on animated films. I mean, that ain't my first rodeo on that. So, with that said, honestly, looking at this right now, and it really does irk me, the fact that there would be a live-action remake of Your Name. Because just like what I said earlier, like, Disney live-action remakes are one thing. But then, when you would go and have live-action remakes of Japanese animated properties, oh man, when they're bad, they can really go downhill, and often they can end up becoming some of the most infamous examples of films based on cartoons. I mean, there can be a few good ones at times, like Speed Racer by the Wachowski sisters. That's actually one great example that, like, not necessarily a great movie, but it turned out to be pretty well made. It was actually pretty solid, and it even surprised me that I watched that. It was like, that actually turned out better than I expected, actually. So, like, there are a few exceptions out there, but when they get bad, they can be monumentally bad, especially when you think about stuff like Dragon Ball Evolution, or even the recent Ghost in the Shell movie. So yeah, there are some movies out there that can really leave a bad taste for modern audiences, and especially with something like this, where you would go and have something that is mostly an American adaptation, because yeah, technically you could debate, like, you got Toho, you got Genki Kawamura that are still attached and that are still involved with this, trying to make sure that the movie would still come out good. But it is still an American adaptation. Not to mention that this is from Paramount, the same people who did the live-action remake of Ghost in the Shell. And you guys all remember how well that one went, especially with the controversies that it received. So it's honestly making me dread how this movie is going to turn out. I mean, debatably, maybe it is a bit unfair of me to say that, because it is true that you would have someone like Isaac Chung to be involved and work on the project, and so far he has built himself up to be an acclaimed indie filmmaker, so maybe he could do something to really make this work out. But still, I mean, it's the notion of taking a Japanese animated property and turn that into this big live-action American blockbuster, and usually they really don't go well. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but in this case here, I'm just not necessarily all that excited to see how things are gonna work out. I mean, like, I'm honestly not, like, I'm still against the idea of Warner Brothers trying to make that Akira remake. I know that they have been desperate, like, constantly trying to make that actually happen, but it's one of those projects that I feel like, I mean, it's been, like, what, more than a decade or two that they're trying to make that become a reality. Ultimately, I feel like it's probably for the best they should just let that go and let the anime just be the anime. Just leave it alone, leave it be as it is. I mean, the anime itself, like the movie itself is already considered a masterpiece as it is. So maybe it's probably best to just not touch it, so that you don't end up in the same kind of scenario as either Ghost in the Shell or Dragon Ball Evolution or whatever. Just in case. But yeah, honestly, overall, it's just, for me, I'm not really all that excited for this, mainly because, like, I do feel like, even though it is a good movie, I do find Your Name to be a bit overrated, and, like, this thing won't be doing any more favors, and not to mention, like, the fact that it will turn into a live-action remake is just something that, yeah, I'm like, so far very hesitant, and not really into the idea. I'm not planning to go and check this out anytime soon. Now, maybe I could be wrong. Maybe they could put out, like, a really good trailer that might pique my interest. But for now, I don't care who you're gonna get. I don't care what new person that you're gonna get to go and rewrite the script or direct or whatever. It's just the idea of taking Your Name and turn that into a live-action remake. Yeah, no thanks. I don't think I'll be down for that anytime soon. Okay, now, with this part done, let us now go on to our next story. And before I jump into the next story right over here, which, by the way, will be a bit of a double story feature. So these are two stories into one, considering that they are both actually very related to each other. But the thing is that before I would go and get things started, I would like to go and make a massive disclaimer. This is just something that I need to go and make a statement so that you guys would have that mindset to have something to keep in mind while you are listening to me talking about these recent news stories. The thing is, what I'm about to go and talk about, a lot of it will be my opinion. These are just going to be my opinion on these movies alone. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there who do enjoy them, and keep in mind, that's perfectly fine. If you like these movies that I'm going to be talking about, that's okay. There's no bad blood between us. It's all perfectly cool. Don't worry about it. We may have different opinions about it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything bad between us, and it doesn't make me a bad guy or a bad reviewer or anything like that, okay? An opinion is an opinion is an opinion. Especially the fact that what I'm talking about is freaking kids movies. That doesn't, like, if I have a problem with these films, that doesn't mean that I'm the problem, okay? So, now with all that said, what I'm about to talk about here is actually two upcoming animated features, both of which that are going to be coming out in 2021, and that they are both sequels, actually. And in this case here, they're actually both sequels to movies that I'm not necessarily a fan of. So first of all, let's go ahead and talk about Hotel Transylvania 4, in which they have revealed some new people that are going to be involved with the project, actually, or some familiar names, but apparently they got a massive boost in their position. Most namingly, Selena Gomez. Not only is she going to be coming back to provide the voice of Mavis, but apparently she is going to be an executive producer for Hotel Transylvania 4. So that seems to be a little bit of an interesting twist. However, I'm sure at this point many people might speculate about what that would mean and what it would mean for Mavis in that movie in particular. But so far we don't have any other form of information as of yet about the movie itself. We don't know anything about what other actors, old and new, that are going to be involved with the project, and we don't really know about the whole plot of it all. We don't know what's going to be the story of Hotel Transylvania 4, or should I say story, quote unquote, since they, let's be honest, they barely would have any story anyways. But what we do know is that we do know the two new directors that are going to be attached to the project. Yes, there are going to be two directors for the fourth installment, and there are two new directors by the names of Jennifer Kluska and Derek Dryman. Now, Genndy Tartakovsky may not be directing on this project, but he is still going to be heavily involved in the fourth Hotel Transylvania film, where not only is he going to be an executive producer, but he is also going to be a writer for this movie, a screenwriter for the film as well. Now, some people, of course, are not necessarily familiar with these directors, and that's perfectly fine because they are doing a directorial debut in this case. But there is a little bit of a description of who they are, actually. Reading from my source here on Variety, it states, Director Kluska previously worked as a story artist on multiple features for Sony Pictures Animation, including Hotel Transylvania 3, Summer Vacation, Hotel Transylvania 2, and Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs 2. She recently directed on the reboot DC Superhero Girls for Warner Brothers, for which she serves as a supervising director and producer. As for Derek Dryman now, Dryman has worked on numerous animated productions and is best known for his works as a creative director on SpongeBob SquarePants, an executive producer on Adventure Time, and a custom animation director for Illumination. And so far, when it comes to Hotel Transylvania, we still got a release date so far where Sony is still planning to go and release this on August 6, 2021. But again, this is not the only news. We also got another double feature. This isn't the only animated sequel of 2021 that we know new information about, because there is also The Boss Baby 2, or as it is now called, the Boss Baby Family Business, in which in this case here, a lot of the people who are involved, or at least the main players, they are still attached and they are still in their positions. Of course, we got Alec Baldwin, who's going to be playing as the Boss Baby, but at the same time, we also got Tom McGrath that's going to be coming back as a director, and also Michael McCullers is going to be returning as a writer. But now we got some brand new actors that are going to be among the cast, and there's going to be a little bit of a twist to them, because so far we got Jeff Goldblum, Ariana Greenblatt, Eva Longoria, James Marsden, and Amy Sedaris that are going to be the new actors for the Boss Baby Family Business. And believe it or not, they're actually going to be the main characters in this case. Yes, it's not actually going to be more wacky adventures with the Alec Baldwin Boss Baby. Now it's actually going to be something a little bit more different. To read from my source here on Variety, once again, it states, Alec Baldwin reprises his role as Boss Baby Ted, and Jimmy Kimmel and Lisa Kudrow are reprising their voice roles as Ted's parents. Greenblatt will voice the role of the super smart 7-year-old Tabitha, who idolizes her Uncle Ted and wants to become like him. Marsden and Longoria will voice the roles of Tabitha's parents, while Goldblum will handle the role of the mysterious founder of Tabitha's school, the Acorn Center for Advanced Childhood. And as for this release date, actually beforehand, let me go and read you a little quote here coming from the director Tom McGrath himself, in which he actually states here, "We are so fortunate to work with such a talented ensemble of actors, all of whom possess tremendous imaginations. The everyday joy for me is not only watching our actors make a line hilarious or heartfelt through subtle adjustments, but the process they all share of improvisation and character creation. They are the heart and soul of the characters they bring to life." In which, so far for now, the Boss Baby Family Business has been scheduled to be released on March 26, 2021. Now, I think I might as well go and start things off with Hotel Transylvania 4. And in case you guys don't necessarily know, well, I guess I could, call it whatever you will. Honestly, at that point, I don't care. Call me that I'm in the minority, or that I have an unpopular opinion, or that this is a movie that I hate that everyone else say what you will. I don't freaking care. I am not a fan of the Hotel Transylvania movies. Not at all. I don't like the style of it. I don't like the I think they're poorly written. And even when it comes to the animation, probably the thing that people praise the most about it, I'm not a fan of that either. It just makes it look like a cheap Saturday morning cartoon. And probably my most controversial opinion about all this, from all that, sorry, let me go and rephrase that, actually. I think I was tripping on my own words. But, honestly, probably my most controversial opinion about these Hotel Transylvania films, I don't think Genndy Tartakovsky is a good movie director. If this is how he is when it comes to directing features, I think it's probably for the best that he just sticks to television, and that's it. But honestly, with this announcement about Hotel Transylvania 4, as you could probably imagine, I'm really not that excited, because now they're at the point, they're going into the 4th film right now, and so far what we've been getting with the previous features, it just feels like we're getting the same movie again and again and again, where you barely get much story, and all you get is just failed attempts at Looney Tunes style gags, and that's probably the biggest crime so far that many of these movies have committed, is that they're progressively less funny one after another. I'll admit, with the first movie, even though I don't necessarily like that film all that much, I will admit there have been some few instances that I actually do find to be pretty funny, or even hilarious, I would say. I would lie if I said that I did not laugh during the first Hotel Transylvania. But when it comes to the other films, with the second one, or especially with Summer Vacation, God, they are not funny, especially when they are so poorly written. And I mean, as much as people do love Genndy Tartakovsky, even Tartakovsky fans have to admit that the Hotel Transylvania films are absolutely his weakest works. I mean, at least compare, like, if you go and compare it to, like, Dexter's Lab, the Star Wars Clone Wars that he made, Samurai Jack, and even nowadays with Primal, you gotta admit, with Hotel Transylvania, they are his weakest works. And I know that there are some people that would scapegoat either Adam Sandler or Sony to go and like pin the blame on them for their flaws, but honestly, like that would be a lie if you're gonna pretend that Genndy Tartakovsky had nothing to do with any of the flaws of the Hotel Transylvania film so far. And so far, I will say, even though there are some new directors involved, and with Selena Gomez now being an executive producer, like, the most that I can imagine what that would mean, and what would be a signal for Hotel Transylvania 4 is possibly the fact that maybe Mavis is gonna have a much bigger role than usual, that she will probably be the central character of the movie instead of Drac. That could be a possibility. I don't know. There's nothing that is confirmed to that. But for me, what kind of irks me, like the thing that really does turn me off with the notion of a Hotel Transylvania 4 is the fact that I feel like we're mostly just going to get the same thing. It's honestly just going to be the exact same thing that we have gotten before with Hotel Transylvania, with Hotel Transylvania 2, and Hotel Transylvania 3. Like, they're all, like, so far, they all feel like they're the same movies, and now that we are at number 4, I don't see why this one is going to be any different. Plus the fact that I feel like Hotel Transylvania really is heading towards a direction that feels a little eerily similar to Ice Age, where instead of, like, getting rid of characters, it feels like they're just adding in more and more new characters, more comic reliefs, as the franchise would continuously progress. So far, honestly, it feels like we're just, like, not only are we gonna get the same thing, but now it's gonna also be the scenario where too many cooks would spoil the broth. Like, seriously, if they really are gonna try, like, if Sony really is gonna do a similar thing to what Ice Age is doing, then I can easily imagine that this franchise is really gonna go downhill. And I already view it as, like, it's already, like, really going down to the bottom, especially with Summer Vacation just being god-awful and easily the worst animated movie of that year. It's just, like, so far, like, what else can you really do at this point? Is there really a point to even continue the Hotel Transylvania movies? Like, honestly, I'm just not really that excited because of the lack of surprise. I know what I'm gonna, like, this is the 4th Hotel Transylvania film. I know what I'm gonna get into, and what I have been getting into, I'm not particularly fond of, so as a result, I'm really not fond of getting into this. And then you would have the Boss Baby Family Business. Now, honestly, when it comes to the original Boss Baby, again, my feelings towards that film is pretty much similar. I personally feel like the original Boss Baby is easily one of the worst DreamWorks movies out there. Or I would even say the Boss Baby is the worst DreamWorks film that we have gotten recently. Yeah, sure, it has an interesting style that it presents with its animation, but other than that, the movies that they have presented, the movie itself that they have presented with its plot and stuff, it's just, it's hard to describe, but it just feels like a very niche, a very gimmicky movie. That's the thing. It's just so desperately dependent on its gimmick of the fact that they had Alec Baldwin, and he's this business executive, no different than the character that he played on 30 Rock, but as a baby. It's just so reliant and so dependent on that concept alone, and yet it managed to get away with it tremendously, where it made more than $500 million at the box office, and even has its own it even has its own Netflix series going on that I believe it's still continuing to this day. So honestly, I'm not necessarily particularly fond of the Boss Baby. So from there, it also results in me not being excited for The Boss Baby 2, like, especially with its success that The Boss Baby had. I knew a sequel would be coming, and I knew I would not really be all that excited about it. But then I read the plot line, and for some reason, it got me so intrigued. You know, it really got me curious, actually. Because the thing is, what it is promising here is pretty much nothing like what we have with The Boss Baby. You know, it's not like with Hotel Transylvania 4, where I can easily guess that we're pretty much going to get the same movie again, with the same characters, with the same type of humor, with the same type of story, and all that kind of stuff. Like, everything about that already feels tremendously predictable. But in here, however, we're not getting the same thing. And it's already obvious from the summary that we got. Because this is not about the Boss Baby. This is not about the Alec Baldwin Boss Baby. It's about the 7-year-old girl named Tabitha. And apparently, like, at least from what they are describing here, it's going to focus a lot more on her. Now, this is not to say there won't be any elements from the Boss Baby that's going to come back, of course, but you could definitely tell that it looks like they're going to be heading towards this brand new direction that's actually going to be about a 7-year-old girl who is also a genius. Now, the thing is that with this, it can really go either way. Now, of course, this could end up becoming like the first Boss Baby, where it's just going to be terrible. It's just going to be as bad as what we have seen before, and it's just going to be another downright embarrassment for DreamWorks Animation, at least for the movie itself. But then again, it could also head towards a completely different direction that is unlike what they took with the first Boss Baby, and it could actually turn out to be great. It can actually turn out to be really clever. And that's the thing that really does intrigue me. Now, the thing is, I'm not going to say that I think this could actually turn out to be awesome. Honestly, I don't know. And yet, that is the actual reason why I'm actually so intrigued and so curious about this one, much more than I am with Hotel Transylvania 4, is the fact that I don't know. It's introducing me this brand new concept, this brand new idea that they're taking the direction of the Boss Baby and go somewhere that I was not expecting, and it could turn out either way. And that, you know, and honestly, it really is this element of surprise why I am so intrigued about the Boss Baby family business instead of Hotel Transylvania 4. Hotel Transylvania 4, I know what I'm gonna get into. I know the stuff that's gonna happen. I know the type of animation that I'm getting. I know the characters. Like, I know everything that's going to happen so far with that movie. It has little to no surprises that they would go and offer, which is why I'm really not interested or even slightly intrigued by Hotel Transylvania 4. But with the Boss Baby, they're going to try, at least they're going to put the effort into trying something different. They're going to try to head towards a new direction. They're going to try to expand the Boss Baby in a way that's a little bit more different, where it's not necessarily a sequel, but a little bit more of a spin-off that they're going to focus on the niece of the Alec Baldwin Boss Baby. And that is the direction where I personally feel like this could work. This could be an idea that I feel like there is a chance that it might actually turn out to be a pretty good movie. Now, it could turn out to suck, it could turn out to be garbage, but there is still that chance that it could go pretty well. I don't know. But still, it's the fact that I don't know, and the fact that it's heading towards a mysterious direction, that has me a bit more intrigued on this one. So that's really the big thing about all this. It really is the factor of the element of surprise when it comes to these animated sequels. If you don't know where you're heading, then honestly, that's what makes the ride a lot more fascinating. But if you are going to go and head towards a new direction, or if you're going to go towards a direction that you've already been taken before, especially with Hotel Transylvania's case, where they're going for like the fourth frickin' time, then honestly, it's at the point where, like, I would just lose all interest. And, well, then again, that is just, again, like, all this is to say that this is only reflects upon my opinion alone. And I mean, I can understand if there are some people out there who would feel differently, that there are those that are much more comfortable in knowing where they are heading with a movie, much more than something like this, where they don't know where things are going to be heading. And I wouldn't be surprised if there are some people out there, when it comes to The Boss Baby, that they'll be a little bit more upset that it's not heading towards a bit more of a predictable direction, where it would feature characters, where I guess what I'm trying to say is that they might be more upset that Alec Baldwin is not the main character of this story, and instead it's going to be this 7-year-old super genius girl. But still, for me, I just feel like I'm a little, like, one thing that this has done for me so far is that, so far it's still saying, for me, like, I look at the new updates on Hotel Transylvania 4, and it's still making me say, I really don't give a crap about this garbage, that this franchise should have died a long time ago, or at least, like, just, like, if they really need to expand it, just make another, like, just keep the series going. Like, they have a Hotel Transylvania series? Like, just continue that and just move on to something original, you know? So far for me, no interest at all in Hotel Transylvania 4. I'm gonna call it already. This could be one of the worst animated films of the year. No question about that. And then for the Boss Baby sequel, however, I don't know where it's going, but that's all the reason why it's making me interested in this one. Okay, so now with this one done, it is now time we're going to jump onto the next story. And with this one, well, it is time that we go and return to the good old 2020 tradition of movie delays. Yes, so far though, we are only at the beginning, and there are only a few films that decided to do a little bit of a change up with their release dates, and there are a lot of them that are only considering. But I will say that oh boy, excuse me about that, folks. As I was saying now, we are pretty much at the start of it. I'm only going to say right now, don't be surprised if in the following weeks, we are going to hear about a lot more movie delays. So let's go and start things off with Disney. Yes, apparently it has been reported that Disney decided that they might do something a little bit different with two big movies that they would have coming up in at the end of this year, with Marvel's Black Widow and Pixar's Soul. Now, when it comes to Black Widow, originally, this was supposed to be coming out sometime on November 6th. However, it looks like Disney is going to be pulling that release date away from Black Widow and is going to give the film a brand new release date, most likely sometime in 2021. As for Pixar's Soul, however, that's going to be a little bit more different. Apparently, they did not take away its November 20th release date. That is still intact. However, Disney is now heavily considering that they might go and instead pull out the entirety, pull out the whole movie from theaters and instead just release it on Disney+. Now, I will go and state this right now, that if Disney does go and decide to put Soul on Disney+, so far there is no confirmation, or we completely don't know if that would mean that they would go and put up a premium access to it, similarly to what they did with the Mulan remake. So we don't know if that would be the case, if either they're just going to put it on Disney Plus for free, or that they would go and put it up on Disney Plus with a bit of a premium fee. Not necessarily $30 like Mulan, but maybe something like with 20 or something like that. So far, there is no confirmation, however. We know that Black Widow won't be released on November 6th, but so far Disney currently is in talks. And so far from what people are hearing, it looks like it could strongly be likely that Soul could be released on Disney Plus exclusively instead of being put out in theaters. Now, as a response to this, it looks like there have been some other companies that decided to do a little bit of a switch up with their release dates as well. Most namely with Universal, with their upcoming animated feature, The Croods 2, in which it has a brand new title, by the way, The Croods: A New Age. And by the way, before I continue, I just would like to go and make a statement because I know a lot of people are going to be commenting on this, but I will say, yes, I am very well aware that Universal did put out a brand new trailer for The Croods: A New Age. I am going to be talking about that on the next episode. Now, if you, at this point, I'm just going to say, if you do see anybody writing down in the comments of, AniMat's, you should talk about the Croods 2 trailer, it's been released, you know, and say all that stuff, just keep in mind, those are the people who act before they think. But anyways, going back to what I'm talking about. Yes, when it comes to the Croods: A New Age, originally, that was supposed to be coming out on December 23rd. That doesn't look like it seems to be the case anymore, where Universal decided to really bump up the release date, where now it is going to be coming out on November 25th, closer to American Thanksgiving. And apparently, this article on Deadline stated that this is actually going to be something that will be extremely intriguing, especially when you do keep in mind about the new deal that AMC has done with Universal when it comes to distribution of movies in theaters and on premium video on demand. If you guys don't recall, the deal was that AMC and Universal agreed that Universal can go and release their movies in theaters and exclusively in theaters for 18 days. So that gives the movie enough time to go and accumulate whatever amount that they would get at the box office for at least 3 weekends. And then after those 18 days, then Universal would go and be allowed to go and release their movies on premium video on demand, where now people can actually go and check it out at home on their computer or anywhere that they can go and check out video on demand movies. But with that in mind, this article on Deadline actually brought up something pretty intriguing where it states, here's the interesting proposition with The Croods: A New Age. With Universal's new shortened theatrical premium video-on-demand window with AMC, they stand to make money with the DreamWorks animation feature during 2 lucrative holiday periods. On Thanksgiving in theaters, excuse me, and over Christmas in homes on premium video on demand. The plan isn't definite, but it wouldn't be a surprise if it happens, especially as moviegoing remains unpredictable during the pandemic. So it looks like Universal is going to take a massive risk. They're going to take a bit of a massive gamble with The Croods 2. However, there is also another bit of news that I would like to go and bring up. This has nothing really to do with anything that the Croods has done or that what Disney has done with Soul and Black Widow, but I do believe it is still really worth mentioning, and that is with the factor of Sony Pictures Animation's Connected, where now it is no longer going to be released on October 23rd. Yes, Sony Pictures Animation decided that they are going to pull out the release date of Connected, and instead, it looks like they are planning to go and delay the movie, actually. It doesn't seem like there is any plans to go and put Connected exclusively on video on demand, just like what Scoob and Trolls World Tour has done. But it looks like Sony might be planning to either release Connected much later in the year, like probably at the end of 2020, or maybe put it out sometime in 2021. To go and read you from my source here on Deadline once again, and this doesn't just necessarily reflect upon, this doesn't just reflect upon Connected, but this also would also reflect upon the fall schedule of 2020 when it comes to movie distributions. It states here, studios saw what Tenet and other film grosses were like without New York and Los Angeles, and both cities are required to be a part of a tentpole marketing blitz, hence the meltdown of the immediate fall schedule. So, that's pretty much the big thing that's going on right now. We are seeing the start of more movie delays that are going to be happening. And I can already tell that this really is going to be the tip of the iceberg, mainly because of what's going to be happening with Black Widow. Now that that movie is not going to be released on November 6th and might be pushed to a new release date, I feel like this is going to be the start of something major, because you got to keep in mind, the thing with Black Widow is that this isn't just any superhero movie. This is a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. And if you're going to push one film, then you might as well have to go and push out the rest as well. And I believe that's what's going to be happening, is that we're going to see another massive shift when it comes to the release schedule, where Black Widow is going to see a 2021 release date, and most of these other films are going to be pushed back even further once again. And what's going to happen from there is that it will cause another massive chain reaction, where it's not just the MCU movies, but also the other superhero films as well. It will affect Sony's release schedule, where they got their movies coming up, including the third MCU Spider-Man film. They got Venom 2, they got Morbius. They would have to go and delay their movies as well to somewhere even further that they can comfortably put their movies so that they wouldn't be in direct competition against Marvel. And the same thing would be said with the DC movies, where they would have to go and delay their features as well. So you can imagine the massive chain of events, and it would even lead to something even bigger, because superhero movies nowadays are actually major feature films. So you'll imagine even more blockbusters would have to go and delay their release dates, or maybe studios are just going to throw up their arms and they're going to say that they give up and they're just going to put their movies either on their respective streaming services or on premium video on demand. They might go and do something like that. Trust me, this might be the start of something, and I'm just talking about Black Widow alone. But also, I will say that there is something very interesting with the notion about Soul. I mean, this has been in talks, and this has been in rumors for a long, long time, so I'm just going to say right now that it wouldn't necessarily surprise me if we are going to see Soul actually end up getting released on premium video on demand, or on Disney Plus, actually. But again, the one thing I will say that I don't know that's going to happen afterwards will be regarding if it's going to be coming out either on Disney Plus for free, or if they are going to do the premium video on demand, or if they're going to put the premium access to it. Because I know technically Disney did state that the premium access thing is only going to be a one-time deal with Mulan, but then again, I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if we are going to see that again. So really, the big wait and see is not necessarily if Soul is going to be on Disney Plus, but rather if they're going to put it on Disney Plus, and if they're going to put a premium access to it or not. But I will say right now, if there's one thing that I think is actually very interesting in all this, it has to be with what the Croods is doing, actually, by moving it up to November 25th, because the big reason why they are doing this is that they really are banking that Disney is going to do something with Soul, rather it be delay it again to somewhere in 2021, or that they will pull it out from theaters and just make it a Disney Plus exclusive. Like, they really are going to be banking hard on that. And it's going to be very interesting to see a non-Disney animated feature be released during American Thanksgiving. Because as you guys all know, American Thanksgiving around the end of November, that is Disney's territory. I don't know if you have noticed that, but for many years recently, Like, you haven't seen any animated feature be released around American Thanksgiving. And that is mainly because, or even any family film be up against, be up in during that time. And that is because Disney has solidified that they have marked their territory during American Thanksgiving. And more often than not, they would often see some very tremendous results. Not all the time, though. It does happen when it wouldn't necessarily work. Case in point with The Good Dinosaur. But when they make it big, they can really make it big. Take a look at Pixar's Coco, for example. Or even better yet, take a look at what happened last year with Frozen 2. Now that it has become one of the highest grossing animated features of all time. So that is a territory that no other animated feature would want to go and face. However, now that there is a notion that Disney might do something with their American Thanksgiving release date, that actually opens up the opportunity that you're going to see companies like Universal try to take advantage of the moment, where they're going to try to bank and see if they can go and actually put up their own animated feature during American Thanksgiving. Now, I know at this point that a lot of people would say that, well, they're already screwed right there, because that would mean that they would go up in competition against No Time to Die, which is the highly anticipated 25th James Bond movie. But then again, that's aiming for a different audience, where technically it would pretty much be viewed as No Time to Die would be for the grown-ups, whereas The Croods: A New Age would be more for the kids. So that I personally find to be very fascinating, that Universal would go and put up a move. And honestly, it does make sense that, considering Disney might not actually have a big animated feature release in theaters for American Thanksgiving, then that would be a great opportunity for other animation studios like DreamWorks to go and take advantage of that, to keep that family, to keep that animation tradition going, that it doesn't necessarily have to be Disney to always provide Thanksgiving animation, that another company like DreamWorks can do the same thing with the Croods. So I don't know, for me, I feel like with that kind of strategy with its release date, I find that to be very intriguing. But then you also got Sony Animation's Connected. Now, with that regard, honestly, I'm not that surprised that they decided to pull it out of its, that Sony decided to pull out that release date, especially right now when the pandemic is still pretty strong right now. Like, to say what you will with how things are going with the United States, but so far in many other places around the world, including in Canada, like, they are starting to see their second wave. So, at this point, it doesn't look like things are going to be strong so far with the with how things are with movies. So it doesn't surprise me that Sony would go and do that. But what does surprise me, however, is that Sony has yet to go and decide to give Connected an immediate video on demand release date. I honestly believed that Sony Animation would immediately go and jump into the same trend. Like, I thought they would see how things were going with DreamWorks and with Warner Animation Group, with Scoob, and with Trolls World Tour, and seeing Paramount jumping into it as well with SpongeBob, Sponge on the Run. I thought they would try to go and do the same thing. But it looks like they might have other plans as well. And technically, it is true that just recently, Sony Pictures, and not just Sony Animation, but fudge nabbit. That spit went in the wrong way. But anyways, it is true that with Sony Pictures in its entirety, they did state that when it comes to their big blockbuster motion pictures, or their biggest movies that they have coming up, they decided to give up on giving them a release date, and they decided to say that when it comes to their big feature films, they're not waiting for a release date. They're waiting until the pandemic is over. They're waiting until a vaccine is invented and that it is widely available to the public all around the world, so that the world can actually turn back to being normal. They're waiting for that to happen, and then they would go and release their big movies. And to give you a bigger frame of what Sony is trying to do, well, let me give you a bit of an example. Let's say that the pandemic is still as strong as it is right now in March of 2021. Let's say if that still continues on. Now, if that does occur, then the movies that they have scheduled there, like the big Ghostbusters movie and Morbius, that ain't going to be releasing in theaters. Sony is still going to go and release that, or they would go and put it up somewhere like on Netflix or on video on demand. So maybe they are going to do the same thing with Connected as well, especially with the fact that it is like, even though they didn't disclose what the budget of this film is yet, it is true that technically you could imagine that it might be one of Sony's more pricier films, considering that they are using the same technology as Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse in order to create this unique looking animated feature. You know, this ain't like Smurfs Lost Village, or this ain't like their Hotel Transylvania films or the Emoji Movie, where it was relatively that they pretty much spend very little on the budget and give it only like a $50 or $60 million budget. Like, I can imagine Connected might be a little bit more than usual because they want to try to step up their game with the animation. But I will say, and honestly this might sound crazy, with the strategy that Sony is trying to do with that kind of release date of just saying screw releases and we're just going to wait until a vaccine is created, to be very honest, I might sound crazy saying this, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but that's probably one of the smartest things that Sony Pictures has ever done, and I think this is something that other studios should follow. I really do applaud Sony for making such a great and very wise decision, and other studios should actually follow suit. Warner Brothers, Disney, Paramount, Universal, Lionsgate, whatever. They should all hold back their release dates. They should all hold back their big movies and just wait until a vaccine is actually created, until we know everyone is safe, we know everything is back to normal, and then they could put out their big movies on the big screen. I think others should probably do that as well. And in the meantime, if they do have to put out their big movies, then maybe they should follow suit with what Disney is doing. Instead of putting out on the big screen, they should go and put it out on their respective streaming services. Like you got, Warner Brothers can put their stuff on HBO Max. Disney got Disney Plus. Paramount, they got CBS All Access. Or technically this week they did change the name. Now it's actually called Paramount Plus. Wow, how original. So, like they would go and do that. Sony, I know they don't have their streaming service, but technically they could go and put it on somewhere else. They could put it either on HBO Max, or they could put it on, let's see, HBO Max, or maybe on Netflix or something like that. But, they could do the same thing as well. And this is all for the sake of keeping everyone safe, of course, to make sure everyone is secure, to make sure that there are more countries who will take action to make wearing a mask mandatory, where you must wear a mask or else you will face severe punishment, either a massive fine or even getting arrested if you're going to go out and about and refuse to go and wear a mask in public. So honestly, I think this is something that, yeah, I get why Sony is doing this with Connected, and I really do hope more studios would go and follow suit. Now, as to when Connected is going to be coming out, I honestly don't know. Like I said, I thought they would go and do a video on demand thing. But honestly, one thing I will say is that I wouldn't necessarily be surprised either if Sony Animation would go and take Connected and they would go and push many of their other movies as well, kind of like have it be like Black Widow and have it be a little bit of a chain of events. Like you would have Connected be released maybe in January, and then you got to push back that Peter Rabbit sequel, and you got to put it out sometime maybe in April, and then you got that Vivo movie, and why not put it out in August, and then you would have Hotel Transylvania 4, and why not release that at the end of September? They Hotel Transylvania 1 and 2 have done, they've experienced great they've experienced great things with the end of September release date. Why not have Hotel Transylvania 4 as well to start things off for Halloween and get the kiddies excited for Halloween? Why not go and do that? So honestly, I don't blame Sony Animation for doing that, and I do applaud both Sony and Sony Animation for probably doing the right thing with Connected. So yeah, honestly, with all this, there's a lot of layers of different stories of what's happening with this, but I am going to say, like I said at the start, don't be surprised if you're gonna hear a lot more movie delays coming from this, because so far this looks like it's gonna be the start of another round of massive movie delays. And so finally, we are now going to go and end things off with the grand finale. And with the grand finale, this does actually relate to a little bit with what I have talked about here. This does relate a little bit with all the movie delays and stuff like that. And I'm going to be talking about from the perspective of movie theaters. Because right now, as you could probably imagine, 2020 has been a nightmare for movie theaters. But unfortunately, I'm just gonna say right now that it looks like the worst has yet to come. And the main reason for that is not necessarily because of the movie delays, but it's because of one movie that actually ended up making things worse for movie theaters. And believe it or not, what I am gonna be talking about is Tenet. Yes, the new Christopher Nolan movie is going to be making things a whole lot worse for movie theaters. Now, I know some of you might be wondering, what? Why? Why would I go and make that kind of insane type of accusation? Especially when this is Tenet. This is from Christopher Nolan, probably the most well-known, the most vocal, and the biggest advocate for the movie theater experience. This is a guy who rejects home media and physical copies and digital releases. He refused to watch movies at home. He thinks the best way to watch movies would be on the big screen. Why would he go and make things worse for movie theaters, especially with his new movie Tenet? Well, here's the thing. The thing with Tenet is that this is the first time in literally months that cinemas have gotten a brand new big release. This is the first time that they've had, the first time that, they're giving people a legit reason to probably go to the movies to check something new, to check something big. And especially with a name like Christopher Nolan, that would often get massive crowds to go and check his movies out. Because as you can imagine, with movies such as The Dark Knight, with Inception, with Dunkirk, with Interstellar, and maybe even more, those movies have done tremendously well at the box office. So as you could probably imagine, if it weren't for COVID, Tenet would have probably been one of those movies that would have done some tremendous work as well to be a massive box office hit. And so far with how things are going at the box office for Tenet is that, well, to be very honest, it's really not good at the domestic box office, at least. Because so far, it has been released on, September 3rd? So it has been several days so far, maybe even a few weeks. And so far, the only thing that it has managed to collect at the box office would be, as I am recording this, by the way, and according to Box Office Mojo, only $36.1 million. But as you could see with the international box office, it has done so much better, and it has been doing a lot of favors for Warner Brothers, actually internationally making $203 million, giving it a worldwide total of $239.1 million. Whew, that came out a little bit weird. But anyways, yeah, so as you can imagine, with the international box office numbers, at least it is giving Warner Brothers an impressive score, especially during a global pandemic that is still going on for months, but it is still pretty strong. And even at that, with the thing is with Tenet is that it really is such a big occasion for movie theaters. In fact, there have actually been several theaters that have opened for the purpose of Tenet, to go and reopen, to get their employees back to work, for the purpose of getting crowds to go and check out Tenet. To read a little bit from my source here on IndieWire, it would actually even go and state, to read this bit of paragraph here, There's lot of caveats here. About 70% of theaters are open in the US, but the top grossing locations in New York and Los Angeles remain closed. This weekend didn't have a holiday attach since Tenet played for 4 days, including Thursday, with full shows before the weekend. That would likely reduce the first weekend's total. The best news is that Warner's report that among the 5 top grosses for Tenet, 4 were in newly reopened areas. The top market was Los Angeles-driven cities like in Orange County, just south of Los Angeles. 4th was the Paramount Drive-In, with fifth best in Fort Lauderdale. Okay, so far things might seem to be going pretty okay for Tenet. But for movie theaters, however, now they are in a situation where things are going much, much worse. And it will be much worse for them. Because probably the big thing that they did not factor in when opening for Tenet is that there are 2 words that could pretty much screw them over at this point. Now what? Okay, you got Tenet out on the big screen. Maybe you also got a few other small movies and like maybe the New Mutants as well. But alright, now what? What else do you got to show? Like, okay, let's take COVID out of the equation. What else do you have to show? Especially when nowadays movie studios are continuously delaying their movies. And just like what I reported, like you got stuff like Black Widow and you got Connected that are delaying their feature films, not to mention that technically some could say that September and October was supposed to be a month where they would slowly reopen theaters and gain back more big movies that would have been coming out. Like, you had stuff like Wonder Woman 84 that was supposed to be coming out in October, but then they decided to just delay that to the end of the year in December. And then you would also have Candyman. That was supposed to be this year's big Halloween movie. However, that did not happen as well, and they decided to go and delay that to sometime next year, leaving movie theaters with very little to even present in the first place. And this article on IndieWire, by the way, which was written by Tom Brueggemann? Anyways, what Tom wrote here on this IndieWire article, he brought up a very solid point that now with Tenet released in theaters, this leaves cinemas in a pretty dire situation where now the money that they want to try to collect, they're pretty much going to go and lose more and more and more of that, leaving them in massive debt, and now they're financially in danger. And it's especially proof coming from this little section here of the article, where it would go and state, this leaves theaters in dire straits. This weekend, the average complex grossed under $5,000 before concessions. More than half of that goes to film rentals. They have staff and other operation costs to pay, as well as rent to landlords. Theaters have a stronger hand in negotiating rent if they're closed. Once open, they owe, and now they face weeks of operation and at a significant loss. Theaters weren't fools in trying to reboot. They were operating from a weak position where opening gave a hope that audiences might flock to Tenet, and if so, other top films would follow. They also feared not opening would encourage more VOD plays, which would lead to greater problems. Now they face further financial stress. Now, the one thing that I will say, first of all, is that I do understand why movie theaters want to go and reopen, because they were pretty much left in a position where they didn't know what to do. You know, they were left in a position where, like, they're kind of desperate to try to go and reopen, or else the whole industry might end up collapsing in itself. Especially when you have video on demand, and when you would have streaming services that are becoming more and more of a viable option for studios to go and release their movies. And we are starting to see more of that actually happen, especially with big name feature films. Stuff like Trolls World Tour, the Mulan remake, and even Scoob. They ended up being immediately released at home instead of being on the big screen like what movie theaters intended. But now they're pretty much at the point that, okay, like they decided that with Tenet it would be a call of action, and they decided that why not have something like a Christopher Nolan movie be the start of something big that hopefully with other movie theaters they would go and follow suit. But it doesn't look like it. The thing with all this is that it is a major gamble. It was a high risk that they are willing to take because they're pretty much running out of options as time would continue. But unfortunately, it doesn't necessarily seem like things are pretty much working out for them. Because even at that, like, take a look at the box office right now. Like, if you look at how much Tenet is making, like, that is a pretty impressive number. But then again, if you think about how much of that actually goes to the movie theaters, you'll realize that very few of it actually does stay with the cinemas. Because as the article even stated, there were a lot of factors that went into it, where there are a few that would end up getting plucked out of it. Because as you guys know, like, more than half of that, at least half of the domestic box office, like, let's say we'll focus just on the domestic numbers. Half of that is immediately slashed off and they're given to the studios, which in this case is Warner Brothers. And then they would have to go and pay a lot more different expenses at that point. They would have to go and pay their employees. They got to pay their staff. They got to pay their maintenance. They got to go and pay the bills, like the electricity bill, the watering bill, and all that kind of stuff. And then they would also have to go and pay for rent, because now that they're open and operating, they have no choice but to pay rent to the landlords, because they're operating in their land. They're operating, they're running their business in their territory. So there really is a lot that they have to go and pay. And even at that, even with the money that they would probably get from Tenet, that doesn't necessarily last long. And at this point, now with Tenet released for a few days, and it doesn't look like it's accumulating any more money, because if you look at how much it made how much Tenet even made during the weekend, so far it made close to $5 million. Okay, still not necessarily that bad, but still pretty problematic for theaters. And even at that, the saddest thing about all this is that this is the most that cinemas could get, and that's the most that they are going to get for a long time. Because really, let's try to go and think about this for a moment. What's going to be the next big movie that's going to be coming out in theaters? What's going to be the next movie that will be appearing on the big screen? Well, at that point, honestly, I tried to do a bit of research, and really, the next big wide release feature film that's going to be coming out is going to be Death of the Nile so far. So far, it's just Death of the Nile. And technically, you could debate, technically, it was supposed to be Death of the Nile and Sony Animations Connected, but because of the recent news of Connected pulled out from its schedule, then so far, the only thing we got so far is just Death of the Nile, which is coming out on October 23rd, which that film is a movie with an all-star cast that's going to be coming, that is a sequel to Murder on the Orient Express. Now, at that point, I'm sure that this is a movie that a lot of people would be very interested in checking out. But that's the thing, though. Just a movie that would be interesting to check out is absolutely not enough. Because the big question is, would people be interested in seeing this? That's not the thing anymore. Nowadays, the real question is, would people be so desperate to risk their health and safety and might possibly catch COVID to go and actually drive to the movie theater, risk being in a public area where they're crammed in with a bunch of people in one little room to go and see a movie on the big screen? That is the big question. Are people really that desperate to risk their lives to see a movie on the big screen? And when it comes to Death in the Nile, I'll say right now, absolutely not. I'm sure there's a lot of people who are really interested in checking that movie out, but I don't think they're really that desperate to go and do so. They could probably still wait for that. They could still wait and see if the movie might eventually come out on Disney+. So there is that major factor. And from there, and also you got to keep in mind, like I said before, Death of the Nile ain't going to be coming out until October 23rd, and that's the next big movie that's going to be coming out on the big screen, at least the one that is scheduled so far. And as I am recording this, that is a month away. That pretty much leaves movie theaters with little to nothing to go and display on the big screen. They'll probably have some movies, but they're too small and too insignificant to really go and catch the public's eye. So right now, they're pretty much facing more and more financial losses. And now that they have reopened, they can't really go back to just being closed unless they're really desperate and they have no choice but to go back and close their doors in order to go and save up for their business, or if their area is going so bad to the point that the government has been left with no choice but to go and close more businesses for the sake of keeping COVID under control. There is that element as well. Now, that would have been, honestly, that's probably the best case scenario for cinemas, because right now, they're operating to empty theaters. There is nothing going on that for people to be interested to go and check things out. They're left with no choice but to operate to no one, to pay their employees, to work and to serve literally nobody, to have movies running on empty theaters. And so far, this is making them lose more and more and more money. And again, the best case scenario for them would be to close their doors so that they could save up and don't have to pay for any of those additional expenses like maintenance or paying their employees. Now, I know technically there is the whole argument that they should still pay their employees, especially during COVID, so that they could remain having a paycheck so that they could pay the bills and stuff like that. But that is still, that's another discussion for another day. You know, that really is the problem with capitalism. But you do get what I'm talking about, though. At least when they are closing their doors, at least the damage won't be as harmful as it would be right now that they are open and operating to nobody. And that's pretty much the big problem that movie theaters are facing, and that's how things are going to be so far with the rest of 2020, because even after Death of the Nile, like the next big blockbuster ain't gonna be coming out until like a long time. So we're gonna see a period where a possible big movie is gonna be coming out on the big screen that might get some interest from people, and then there's gonna be a long streak of emptiness, and then you'll see another big movie that's going to be coming out that might interest some people to go and see it, and then another long streak. It's going to happen again and again and again. And so far, it's at the point that it's really going to damage movie theaters more than usual. I don't know what this is going to mean in the future. I don't know if this is really going to put movie theaters and the movie-going experience in danger. But I am going to say right now that when it comes to this, honestly, it's just, at least so far for the rest of 2020, we're going to see movie theaters expect like a lot of major financial losses, which could possibly lead to maybe seeing some major buyouts. I've heard rumors that maybe AMC is going to be completely bought out by Amazon, or I think it actually did happen, but maybe we are going to see a lot more of that actually happen. So that's the big thing with all this, is that so far for, like, yeah, 2020 has been a very bad year for movie theaters, but personally, I feel like now that with Tenet release and more movie theaters have reopened and trying to operate and stuff like that, things are just going to be a lot worse for them. If spring and summer has been bad for them, oh boy, wait till the fall season, because let's just say it's really going to put emphasis on fall. So with that said, I think that should go and conclude this episode of AniMat's Crazy Cartoon Cast. And wow, this actually turned out to be fantastic of an episode. But don't worry, folks. For next time, things are gonna turn back to normal. I will be back on Saturday. The chat wall is gonna be up and running, and it will be all live. So don't worry, I will be back on Twitch. So with all that said and done, though, I would like to say thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. And until next time, oh boy, my voice cracked right there. But then again, it wouldn't be the first time, of course. So anyways, until next time, folks, see you later, dudes.